More funding for this, budget cuts for that, reform resolutions, and lots of debate at the Capitol. We'll talk about what lawmakers are working on. Then we'll talk about what the Council of Small Towns wants lawmakers to be working on. The COST 2012 Town Hall meeting is coming up. Hi, this is The Real Story. I'm Laurie Perez. With the short session, there is no time to waste at the Capitol. Joining us to talk about the healthy agenda is Senate President Donald Williams, Representative Themis Klarides, Mark Pazniokas of the Connecticut Mirror, and current columnist Rick Green. Thank you all for being here. I guess if we could start with you guys and just give your impressions so far of how the session is going.
It's very busy. It's the short session. We'll be focused on jobs and the economy because I think most of the people in Connecticut believe that even though the experts are talking about recovery, there's still a lot more to do. Education, of course, is going to be a very important issue. Energy, consumer protection. So there's a lot of different issues going on. I'm quite frankly glad that we're back to what feels more like a normal session after coming out of the last 3 years of multiple billion-dollar budget deficits.
Does it feel normal to you?
Well, I don't really know what that word normal means. I think that's relative in the political world, but it is a short session, but I try and explain to the freshmen that are in the legislature. It's shorter in length, but we kind of jam everything into the 3 months instead of 5 months. We don't really ease into it as much as we do the other years. I agree with Senator Williams in the sense that we're not dealing with an immediate sense of urgency insofar as the budget goes, but we are in a deficit still. And we have great ideas coming from the legislature and the governor about education and things like that, but we have to get our house in order before we can even figure out education or any other things because we don't have the money to pay for it.
And what would be the first step to do that, do you think? To get the house in order, as you
Well,
said?
first of all, we have to figure out, do we have a budget? Do we have a deficit? Do we not have one? The Treasurer's Office has said we have one. The governor said, oh, no, it'll be fine. You know, there's cost savings that we worked on last year for concessions that we're not going to realize a large percentage of that now. You know, I mean, there's a lot of things we have to do to go forward.
You know, the great difference that I see is that we have a governor, Governor Malloy, who acknowledges what the challenges are. And we will have a balanced budget come the end of the fiscal year. No question about it. I mean, if we're not in the black, then we'll make the cuts that are necessary, and those cuts won't be that severe, certainly not in comparison to previous years. And of course, you go back a couple years, and the governor before Governor Malloy didn't recognize the full extent of the deficit, ignored $2 billion worth of the deficit. So, you know, I give credit to the governor for hitting this head on, making tough choices, and by the end of this fiscal year, the budget will be balanced.
But this is a governor who put forward a budget where there's no margin for error, there's no reserve fund, and there's projections on the out years that rely on some cuts that have to be made to produce surpluses that are projected. How comfortable are you in an election year that this isn't going to blow up in your face at some point?
You know, I'll tell you, 49 other states are going through similar predicaments, and actually many of those states are in much worse shape. About 30 states right now are running real deficits totaling about $40 billion. So Connecticut is in far better shape than most of those other states. Now, we right now, I think, will be in the black, and if we have to make cuts, as I said, it won't be that much. But the difference here is that the governor is acknowledging what the problem is. We didn't have a budget that borrowed $1 billion, that had union concessions that weren't really concessions, but simply deferrals of pension payments. So we are in much better shape from a budgetary point of view now than we were a year ago, 2 years ago, and it's time to get on with the business of fixing the economy, devoting ourselves to growing jobs, helping small business, and giving the folks in our communities the support that they need on Main Street.
But you know, education, which was a big part of the governor's budget speech, includes, is it close to $130 million in new spending? I mean, there's a lot of things that don't involve new spending, but is it a good year to be talking about spending that kind of money when we do have questions about a deficit?
You know, the governor, I think quite rightly, is focusing on those schools that are the poorest performing schools in the state. We have the largest achievement gap in Connecticut. If we want to have a competitive economy with a well-trained workforce, we have to do better. I talk with business leaders, CEOs of precision manufacturing companies, large and small. I was just at AdChem in Manchester, where they're adding to their workforce. They're growing. They have additional jobs, but they need employees who are well-educated and well-trained. So this is an investment that is a wise investment.
Do you think Republicans are going to join with Democrats on this grand education initiative?
Well, you know, a lot of the education ideas the governor came out with, we do agree with, and quite frankly, there are a lot of ideas that we've put forward before. However, the problem is, as I mentioned before, we have to take a few steps back and figure out where we are fiscally before we can figure out how we're going to spend the money. And I didn't want to have to do this, but Senator Williams opened the door, so I feel I need to walk through it, bringing up our former governor. I mean, the reality is, in 2008, the Republican governor and the Democrat-controlled legislature saw the big problem we were in and didn't do anything about it. He didn't do anything about it. And that's when we had the do something and the do nothing budgets, you know, that we put forward. And the fact of the matter is that we had the highest tax increase in the state's history last year. We are one of the highest, if not the highest, bond indebtedness states in the country. Moody's downgraded us, and they based their downgrading of our rating on the fact that our borrowing is so high and our ability to pay back is not that great. Okay, so all those things combined, I think the education reform ideas are great, but I don't even think we can address additional monies before we figure out where we are now and where we're going.
Look, what happened 2 years ago was you had a Republican governor who ignored $2 billion, $2 billion, not million, $2 billion in debt. And we battled with the governor so that the governor would recognize the true state of Connecticut and help us get out of that. We had to pass a law that required the governor to recognize that true deficit. She vetoed it. We had to override the veto. Only when that became law, 30 days later, we had a budget. But we had to drag our colleagues on the other side, kicking and screaming to the fiscal reality in this state. Today, sure, there are challenges. No question about it. And we've got more to do. But we're in much better shape because we have recognized, and this governor has recognized what our challenges are.
Go ahead.
Has this governor overpromised it all? He did attack a huge deficit last year. There's no question that a lot of progress was made financially. But he has couched everything in terms of this is going to be absolutely gimmick-free. And with all due respect, there's always some gimmicks and some easy accounting in these things. So is he set an unreasonable standard that he can't possibly meet this year when he talks about, again, this idea of gimmick-free budgeting?
Well, I think, Mark, you've seen a lot of budgets. You've seen a lot of gimmicks in Connecticut and 49 other states. I think we're much further down the fiscally responsible path than Connecticut has been down in a long time. And I think that we're further down that road than most, if not all, other states are, at least the states that are facing budget crises that don't have, you know, oil or natural gas wealth or that type of thing.
We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll come back and we'll continue our look at what to watch at the Capitol after the break.